Alright, so let's get started with the cylinder tutorial. The first thing you want to do is start SOLIDWORKS. So go ahead and click on the SOLIDWORKS icon. When you enter SOLIDWORKS, you should get a window that says Welcome SOLIDWORKS. Now you may or may not enter the Learn tab, but there's several tabs. You might be in the Home tab that allows you to start your part or assembly or drawing. But just to show you what's available, there's a Learn tab, which allows you to go through some tutorials, get started with the SOLIDWORKS CAD program, different things. So if you need some more resources, this is where you would go to. The Recent tab is different recent files that you've worked on. And then the Home tab is where you would go to start your project. So go to the Home tab and go ahead and click on New Part. Alright, so you'll notice that a blank, area shows up. This is where you're going to be drawing all of your model, anything that you're modeling. And then over on the left here is where you have your Feature Manager design tree. This is where all your commands that you've done, all the things that you've put into your part will go, and you'll see that build up as we start modeling the cylinder. And then you have your commands over here. You have different tabs that we'll be using depending on what you're doing at the moment. And then you have up at the top, you have a Help. So go ahead and click on the Help. So you go SOLIDWORKS and then Help right there. Now you can't see it. I'm going to drag it over for you to see, but it opened on my second screen. But it opens up a website where you can type in anything that you might need help on. So I'm assuming you don't know any of the commands, but if you wanted to know how to draw a circle, we can type in circle and click on circle, and it will tell you everything that you need to know about how to draw a circle. Like there's two types of circle. You can do a center and a circumference. You can do a 3-point perimeter circle. It tells you where to find it, right? You can find it in two locations in the Sketch tab, and you can find it in the pull down menu, going Tools and Sketch Entities and then Circle. And I'll show you that when we get out so you know what we're talking about. So this is where you can go to find anything that you're kind of confused on. Alright, so I'll close that down. So what does it mean, Sketch tab? This is a Sketch tab, so I'm going to click on the tab that says Sketch, and there's my circle. So those are the two circles that it mentioned. And then the pull down window is here. Yours is probably hidden. So here, next to the SOLIDWORKS name, you'll see a little triangle. So if you hover over that triangle, it's going to open up all these options. I usually like to pin that. So I'm going to click on the pin and pin it so it doesn't disappear, because I use the pull down menu quite a bit. So it said in the Help menu to go to Tools and Sketch Entities and then Circle. So there are the circles. So there's two ways to get to that command. Alright, so that's how to use the Help menu, and that's how to access the pull down menus. And then we have the tabs. Alright, so let's go on and notice some other things about the user interface. So I already mentioned the Feature Manager design tree. This is where everything that went into building your part appears. And I already mentioned the command manager that holds all your tabs that have different commands. And then over here on the top of the drawing area is your heads up toolbar. We'll mess around with that in some of the tutorials, but it allows you to view your part in different ways. It allows you to change the background. So for example, you can see here that it's kind of a gradient background. I can go in here and change that if I want like just a white background. So you can just play around. I'll put it back to 3-point faded. But there's different things you can do with this heads up toolbar. And then down here on the lower left where it says SolidWorks Premium, this is your status bar. So if you're doing a command and you don't know what the next step is, look down there, because it might tell you, oh, pick a center point, oh, do this. So that area is where it tells you what to do next. And then over in the bottom right, it tells you what units you're working in. So right now I'm working in inch, pound, second, but I could change that to millimeter, gram, second. So I could do that quickly there, or I could change it to any one of these. All right, so that's kind of what we have. And over here we have another area which allows us to get into the library, which we'll be messing around with, and the home tab. If you need to go back to the welcome window, you can do that. There's other things in the home tab. You know, if you are more into SolidWorks, this area will be of use to you. I don't use it much, but it does have resources. All right, so let's get into setting up our drawing so that we can start making our cylinder. So the first thing you want to do when you start a new drawing is set it up. Like set up your units, set up, you know, what is the basis for your drawing. So I'm going to go to options, which is this little gear-like thing, and click on that. All right, then I'm going to do document properties. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that this is ANSI. So there's different standards that a drawing uses. We use ANSI standard. So make sure that's on ANSI. And then we want to make sure that all of these are clicked to uppercase. Now it doesn't make too much difference in the model, but if you're doing a drawing, right, all the lettering and everything in your tables and in your dimensions, they need to be uppercase. So no lowercase letters should be on an actual drawing. So it's just a good habit to click uppercase for all of these. Now we're going to go into units and select our units. All right, so we can select any units. We're going to select inch, pound, second for this drawing. And we're going to use 2 decimal places. That's the normal for when you're working in inches. You're going to normally use 2 decimal places. So we'll keep that as 2 decimal places. But if you click on that, you can see that there's choices that you can have, but we'll use 2 decimal places for this. And then you have a section where you can choose your rounding. Now, it's tradition to do kind of a weird rounding system. So you're going to round if you have like 0.125. and you want to round that to 2 decimal places. The computer program is going to round that to 0.13, but we don't want to do that. We want to use the traditional method for drafting. We want to round that to 0.12. Now, why? Well, because 2 is an even number. So if it's an even number, we just drop the 5. If it's an odd number, we're going to round up. So I know it's a little weird, but so we're going to let the computer take care of that. We're going to click this little button and say round half to even. So we like even numbers. So whenever we're rounding, we're going to round it to an even number. All right, and that's all we need to do here. So we're going to go OK. So this would be a good time to save your file. So we're going to click on this little save thing, and we will save our file. So pick a good location and save it. So I'm going to name the file cylinder and save it. Okay, we're going to make our first sketch. So to make our first sketch, we need to tell the program what we want to sketch on. So we're going to go to the Sketch tab, say we're going to do a sketch, and then we need to tell it where we're going to sketch. Well, we're going to sketch on the top plane. So we're going to say, click on the top plane. This is where we're going to sketch. So now it's ready for us to sketch on the top plane. All right, we're going to make a circle. So we're going to go up here to the circle, the center circle. We're just going to click on that. And then we're going to hover over the origin. So do you notice that when I hover over the origin, it gives me a little red dot? So when I get that little red dot, I'm going to click. And I'm going to pull my circle out and then click again. I don't care how big it is. I'm going to dimension it to tell the computer how big it's going to be. Then I'm going to click on Smart Dimension and click on the circumference of the circle, pull the dimension out and click again. And I want that circle to be a 2-inch diameter circle. So I'll put 2 and enter. And notice that the circle is now black. It started out blue and now it's black. So when a sketch entity is completely black, you know that it's completely constrained. And that's what you want. You want it completely black, and when it's completely black, you know you're good. All right, so we're done with this circle. So we want to now go to the Feature tab and hit Extrude. And we want to extrude that to a length of 1 inch. So we're going to enter 1 right over here in the depth and hit the green check. And there we go. We have our first model. And you're probably thinking, well, what are you doing here? It's getting bigger, it's getting smaller. So what I'm doing to make this get bigger and smaller is hit or scroll my wheel on the mouse. So if you have a wheel on your mouse, you can zoom in and out by using that wheel. All right, so we'll stop this part right here and we'll pick up continuing with the cylinder in part 2.